Minute by Minute podcast reviewing 1997 sequel Jurassic Park, 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And today we're here to discuss minute 43 of The Lost World. Dave, how you been?
I'm good. We're just kind of relaxing and enjoying the summer.
Lucky you. It's been raining pretty much non-stop here for the last 12 hours, so...
Oh, really?
Lots of water around. Before we get into minute 43, last week we sort of talked a little bit about Congo and Crichton's earlier work there. This past week I managed to catch up with Sphere and gave that bit of a read through, and it's just interesting some of the differences and some of the similarities between the novel and the film. I think this is the first one that I've actually read that sort of follows the film pretty closely, where a lot of Crichton's earlier work, or a lot of his film adaptations, were really cut and pasted and chopped up a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Congo and The Lost World being two of the largest ones that were completely different things on screen. But also the novel concentrates a lot more on the crashed ship under the ocean as well, and not just the sphere itself.
Yeah, which I always thought was kind of nice, because it really didn't... I mean, I haven't read the book since I was in high school, so I can't remember if it was what the nature of the origins of the sphere were, or if it was ever explained. Do you?
No, it's sort of the mathematician who is the Samuel L. Jones character in the film. He hypothesizes at the end of the novel that it's a lot of Crichton stuff. He sort of leaves it up to the reader at the end to make up their own mind. He says because the ship itself, the USS Star Voyager, was built and sent to go through a black hole. It was pretty much a big drone, self-piloted, automated systems, and there was a crew of 20 on board, but that crew of 20 disappeared by the time we got to it on the bottom of the ocean. But it went through the black hole and supposedly found this sphere and come back at the wrong time. They also hypothesised that the ship could have been travelling for any amount of years in space, in time, and it could have been the crew that actually made it to occupy themselves or something like that. So yeah, it's never really confirmed to be alien. In the novel also, we do actually get to go inside and see what's inside it. The psychologist character at the end makes his own mind up and goes in, because everyone else has been affected, so he's going in as well, and it's really just him talking to his self-conscious. So
those kind of moments were kind of cut from the movie, though.
Yeah.
And a lot of the description of the actual spacecraft itself, because it was kind of described as being like an airplane-shaped thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's half a mile long, almost like it's cigar-shaped as well, with a big fin on the back. So it's almost like a aircraft, just a lot bigger.
Yeah,
and lead-lined. It's got an outer shell, so it can sort of cope with radiation and that sort of thing as well.
Which was kind of what preserved it down there, because it was so deep.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't that deep. Now I remember, it was in the American Star it crashed into.
It was 1,000 feet.
Yeah, but I mean, in the Pacific Ocean, that's like halfway down in some parts.
Yeah. They actually say in the novel, it's lucky it crashed here and not any other place. It was a relatively shallow part of the Pacific.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more in the novel too. There's a lot more exploring the cockpit, the black box, if you will, as well. We see that it was launched in 2045, but there's logs all the way up to 2056 before they get to their unknown event that which was going back in time. A lot of this stuff, you don't even know the sphere exists until chapter 16 of 60. whereas pretty much as soon as they get on the ship in the movie, they find the cockpit, and another team finds the sphere straight away.
Yeah.
But it's also
Yeah.
it's also funny. Crichton has these little ways of sort of talking about technology at the day, and they say at one point that the Habitat has 10 gigabytes of computer storage on board.
No, I have a hard drive, an external hard drive that stores more memory.
Yeah.
You know.
There was one thing with Congo too, when they were discussing where technology is going and that sort of thing. They were talking about how at the moment they had 16 megabyte flash cards or SD cards, and we're hoping to push it to 32 megabytes, like stuff like that.
32 megabytes. Heck, the disc on my digital camera holds more.
Yeah, I got a 2 gigabyte card sitting right here. And now you can get 250 gigabytes like storage. But yeah, in the because it was the same sort of thing with Congo's finding out when the film was made, or when the novel was made. It was written in '84, I believe, but it still takes place like early '80s.
Which is interesting because reading it now, 2045. That's what 28 years from now.
Yeah. And it's sort of another thing.
We're not there at all.
No. 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 Well, that's the interesting thing too, because they make a point. The lead shielding's about 6 inches thick, so they know the ship must weigh an incredible amount, and that there must be some sort of new propulsion system to get it moving. It's not confirmed, but it's suggested that it must have been built in space and not actually built on Earth, because you'd never get it to fly. But a lot of that stuff's just sort of skipped over. We don't see the engine room and none of that, because he hasn't. If you don't have the explanation to sort of let the reader know how that happens, you just leave it up to imagination.
Yeah. But that does bring up an interesting point, because the International Space Station is kind of built in space, and it's just brought up there piece by piece.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah, because you'd never get a structure like that into orbit.
No.
More so because of how fragile it is too.
Yeah.
We've seen a couple of movies now where it blows up pretty easily, so... Also, the sphere in the novel's like a chrome ball, like a ball bearing, not the gold colour we see in the film.
There was a change I kind of didn't like. Because there was the chrome sphere in the novel, which I always kind of liked the idea of it. It was like almost a mirrored surface, chrome-like surface. Whereas in the movie, it's like this textured gold thing.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same sort of goldy colour as what space material, like the space insulation that's made of. So it sort of makes it look more like it's human-made. Even though, because CG being where it was at the time, they sort of made it ripple and that sort of stuff. They're showing reflections of the ship, but not reflections of the people standing in front of it, was sort of cool. But I'd always mixed up when the film came out, because I know Congo was 94, I think, after Jurassic Park. I thought Sphere was like 95, 96 straight after Congo, but it didn't come out until 98.
No.
Which is, a post-Jurassic, post-Lost World, which...
Yeah.
I would have thought after The Lost World and how much Spielberg changed it, I would have thought by then Crichton would have been completely off the adaptation train, but I suppose if that money was coming in for it.
It's true. Plus, this movie had a lot of big name actors. You had Samuel L. Jackson, you had Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone. All of them were already made it big by then, you know?
Now going into the film itself, that's one thing that I definitely noticed. yes, the sort of Goldblum was semi-known for his work before Jurassic Park, but Sam Neill and Laura Dern weren't massive stars.
Yeah.
Even going into Lost World, Congo, sort of Laura Linney had done some stuff. Like The Guide being in a sitcom or something, and you've got Ernie Hudson as well in Congo. That's sort of a well-known actor, and of course
And
Tim
Curry
Curry.
was also semi-well known because of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah. But this would have to be probably the most star-studded cast in any of Crichton's adaptions.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my mind, like later on with Timeline and that, you get Billy Connolly and you get Paul Walker in there as well, but it's sort of again the rest of it's not really anyone named. And here you've got this massive. I'd love to see what the budget is. I should have brought IMDb up, but it's like we're going to really have a go at this Crichton novel and bring on some big name stars to do it, and they all have great roles and they all do a great job. Sharon Stone, I really know her from. No, I don't really know her. I know her from Catwoman.
I'm familiar with her through the movie Casino.
Yep.
And my dad absolutely adores the movie. It's got Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci, and it's about the Chicago mob and their influence in the Las Vegas rackets.
Okay.
And so Sharon Stone is like this rat hooker who gets hooked up with them and marries Robert De Niro in the movie.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like even Hoffman sort of don't really know him from much. He's not really in films I'd watch. But I
know from like movies like Hook. I loved him in Hook. His character Captain Hook. And then of course Meet the Fockers.
Yep.
It's funny with him.
Yep. Yeah, I've probably seen a couple of those comedies.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yep.
The Graduate. The Graduate. I always want to call her Mrs. Robinson because of the song. He was in The Graduate. The main character in there. And then Samuel L. Jackson, of course, we got him from Jurassic Park and Deep Blue Sea was after this, wasn't it? That was 2001.
Yeah. But we'd had Pulp Fiction, of course, had come out.
Because I remember seeing when I rented the DVD. That movie was part of the first advertisements for DVDs.
Yep. Well, I think Twister was the first one on DVD.
Was it?
Yeah.
I remember the advertisements for the Lost World and Jurassic Park's combo collector's edition sets.
Yep.
We talked about earlier.
Yeah, that was my first one. Yeah. But it's great too because in the film we sort of get straight to the habitat within 15 minutes. It's really compacted nicely at the start. Sort of this novel was a bit harder to get through than Congo, just because of the dialogue and sort of the little side trips we went on.
Yeah.
And a lot of
some of the dialogue I really enjoyed though.
Yeah.
Like when they're talking to quote unquote Jerry.
Yep.
And in the novel, one thing that I was always disappointed that they got cut was one of my favorite parts of the novel, where they first go down into the capsule, out of the submarine and into the capsule that they have underwater there, and because they explain that because oxygen is a corrosive gas, they use helium. So before they go down there and before they get they have to have these little strips with like a voice recorder on it because otherwise, of course, they're breathing helium, which humans can breathe, but it just makes their voice squeaky because it's lighter than oxygen. So, Dustin Hoffman's character and I think it was Samuel L. Jackson's character go down there, and they're laughing up a storm because their voices are getting progressively squeakier and squeakier.
Yeah, they go when they get to the dry dock or when they get into the habitat. There's they go into like a little box anyway, where they get pumped in with the helium to adapt to the new conditions. And
Oh yeah, that's what happens.
yeah, and again, it's just like one of those things in this film where dialogue's just compacted into a couple of sentences. The colonel in charge says you've got talking or breathing apparatus on the walls behind you. Put them on. You never see anyone put them on. You never see them ever again on the characters. But in the novel, it's explained that to talk properly in the helium atmosphere, they've got to have these voice box things on their necks. But but it's not just that too. Also, later on, there's they get a heap of dialogue squished just to some back and forth banter whether or not they should open or not open the door to the ship. Samuel L. Jackson brings it up. Do we actually want to open it up? What's going to be in there? And everything else. And once we do get into the ship, it's weird. One thing that's never brought up again is they find footprints in the dust, and say someone else has already been here, and it's never mentioned, never brought up again in the film.
No. Another thing that I was kind of disappointed that they didn't cut all the way from the movie, but they kind of did, was the giant squid. And there was a major plot point in the novel that they had, because this giant squid attacks the capsules.
There's two major scenes because it's manifested by one of the characters, and it's sort of it does damage to the habitat. And they need to stop, but Jerry's sort of being childish and didn't you like what I just done and that. And also the film underplays the electrical defence they've got running through the outer shell. How it's in place, but whenever they use it, it starts fires. And down there in a helium-rich environment, the fires are a lot worse than what they normally are. And sort of in the film, it's sort of they just throw the lever and shock it off, and then all of a sudden there's a fire. It's not really explained.
But I was always enthralled with the idea of this giant squid attack, because I liked it was a TV movie from Sci-Fi, back when Sci-Fi was good for TV movies. It starred William Peterson of CSI fame.
Yep.
And so it was based on the novel by Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, the novel.
Yep.
And it's about how a giant film is attacking this coastal town in the Pacific Northwest. And so I always kind of liked the idea of giant squids attacking, because it's like that Kraken story, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't really show a lot of it in the film. Like, there could have been some bad CG done here, but they sort of showed resistance. If it was made now, you'd definitely see that squid on the outside CG'd up. Maybe because of the way their budget and what they had to work with in the day, they didn't have couldn't put the squid on the outside actually attacking.
Yeah, that's true.
Because most of the CG shots, most of the CG shots don't look too bad for what's in here, but it could have been a lot worse. But I suppose one of the big differences between the novel and the movie is at the end, all three of them have got the powers. In the novel, Sharon Stone's character and Samuel L. Jackson's character sort of go nuts with it because they can't handle it. Where in the film they sort of, as they're escaping, they all sort of get around it. In the novel, Hoffman's character Norman sort of knows how to use the power and that, but it's not really used in the film until they get back on the boat and they all decide that they want to forget they ever seen the sphere. And then the last big one, I suppose, the difference is that in the novel the ship blows up and the sphere supposedly goes with it, whereas in the movie the ship blows up and then the sphere takes off into space.
Yeah. And I always thought at the end of the movie, there's like a dozen Navy ships all around this thing. Does none of them notice this?
Well, people are looking up at it.
All rising out of the ocean and rising into the sky, you know?
Yeah, the sailors looking up at it as it goes. So not everyone sees it, but a few will. And And also, I'm pretty sure it's mentioned in the novel about all the backup tapes and everything that are in the mini sub. Every 12 hours, I had to reset the mini sub so it wouldn't sort of lifeboat itself back to the surface with all the data and that they'd collected. So if something had gone wrong down there was at least some sort of record preserved. That same mini sub's what they took up to the surface. So presumably, all those tapes and data's on board. I don't know when they chose to forget, if they also chose to wipe those tapes as well, but because up until, again, second Crichton work that's got a massive storm in the middle that disrupts everything. There's a big tropical storm that hits the area and all the ships have to evacuate and leave them down there alone. Up until that point, and they're tethered to the surface, they've got full-on communications with the surface, and the colonel in charge is telling his people that what they're finding, they found the ship, they found the sphere, and they want to stay and explore it more. So, but it's the film's definitely made up to be more of a psychological thriller. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. I was in it more for the ship itself, which is definitely covered a lot more in the novel, but not so much in the film.
Yeah.
But I shared it around on social media that we're going to do this, and a lot of responses and a lot of positive stuff for Sphere. Also for Congo last week as well. Like a lot of people enjoyed both novel and film, which is good to see. But if that's all you got to bring up on Sphere, David, we'll get into minute 43.
Sure.
As we entered minute 42 of The Lost World, Peter Ludlow was talking via video uplink to the InGen board of directors in San Diego, showing off 2 of their latest captures, compies in a cage. As we start minute 43, Ludlow says, in a moment we'll take you for a stroll through the camp and show you some of the more impressive specimens. At 42 minutes and 1 second, we cut to Nick and Sarah coming into the camp amongst some animal cages. The camera pans down around a large stegosaur cage, the animal inside, trapped. At 42 minutes and 26 seconds, Sarah unlocks the door and opens it slightly so the stegosaur can escape. At 42 minutes and 29 seconds, we cut back to Peter Ludlow and his lecture, saying you don't bring people halfway around the world to visit the zoo, you bring the zoo to them. And at San Diego is the perfect setting. At 42 minutes and 48 seconds, we cut back to Nick and Sarah, continuing to release animals, including a baby Triceratops and a Pachycephalosaurus. And as we end out minute 43, they open the cage to the baby stegosaur. All the animals bellow loudly, released from their prison. And this ends minute 43 of The Lost World.
So we end minute 42 with Ludlow crouching down beside the caged compies and saying that in a moment we'll take you for a stroll through the camp and you'll see some of our more impressive specimens. It's a great little touch here, having the compy sort of nip at his finger. Again, even though the compy's in a steel box, it's still acting. Again, I'd have to suspect it's a rod puppet in there.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yes.
Also, one thing I noticed here too, they got the camera mounted, it's on the guy's shoulder, but they got the cables going into the computer. We're not quite wireless camera send and receive video here, but they're going to go for a stroll through the camp, so they're going to tow a big cable behind them. I always thought that was weird.
When we look into the next minute here, into the next couple seconds in this minute here, when Nick and Sarah come out of the brush, you can see that the camp is not very far behind them.
Yeah, well, that's it. We cut straight from Ludlow at the tent here to Nick and Sarah coming on the scene now. This is the first thing we see of them in the film coming into the camp. But there's some deleted material, deleted production photos. Was anything actually filmed of them sabotaging vehicles?
I believe it's filmed, but all we have is the production stills of them slipping the fuel lines on the Hummers and all the trucks and stuff. But that explains why they go launching up in the air when they do later in the next couple of minutes here.
Well, it also explains why we've got to walk or track to the communication center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's not shown here at all. All we see is them releasing animals, but I know in the original script, they're pretty much Nick and Sarah going around to every vehicle, cutting fuel lines.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck doing that on the Unimogs, I'll just say, because they're a little bit more hardened to that sort of thing, being a war vehicle or military vehicle. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's the conceit we've got to do here. We need to be able to have everyone on foot to make them more vulnerable to attack later on. So, and we probably see a handful of vehicles during the roundup as well. So, apart from all this equipment, like we've got cages here, we've got portable generators and floodlights and all this other equipment that we didn't see get to the island. But yeah, as you said, when they come on the scene here, no sign of the laser fences as we've discussed in previous minutes.
Yeah.
They just walk out of the jungle. Everyone's occupied. On the top of the screen over at the tent, watching it again just before this record on the computer, you could actually see Ludlow's shadow in the tent with his hat on. So it must have been shot before he before he started the video conference, because he's got the hat off and on the compy cage during that. But they start running around, opening up cages. You got the Stegosaur there. Good reveal of that animatronic standing in there.
Yeah, I love how Nick, even though he's supposed to be disgusted that they're caging these graceful, beautiful animals, he can't help but to smile at looking at these animals. You know, I mean, Sarah's looking all concerned, and then you got Nick with this big shit-eating grin on his face.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. Yeah, it's sort of that can be two things. It could be either. Well, I suppose mainly it's look how close I am to this big animal, because the Stegosaur looks at him and bellows.
Mm-hmm.
But I just love how sort of a reverse shot to the reveal, or earlier where we had the Stegos in the creek, and you sort of had the camera up at plate height or looking up at the plates as the animal walked past. Well, here the camera's panning in past the plates. This time behind the bars of the cage.
Yeah, you can see the mist going through the plates as you can see the shadows being cast onto the plates.
Yeah.
The lights.
Yeah, you got the floodlights sort of shining in through as well.
Yeah, it's almost kind of an interesting contrast that you got going between the natural when we were looking at the Stegosaurus earlier, and the sun shining through the plates and the mists are kind of just shining and creating shadows coming off the plates. Then we have them here caged, and you got the floodlights doing the same effect.
Yeah. And it sort of asks that big question: when did they catch it? We thought we'd seen the whole hunt, sort of going after the Packy and some of the other animals as well. But here you've got the Stegosaur here, which we didn't see the hunters come across. It was only the gatherers. Yet we've got one here. I don't think it's as big as the ones we've seen earlier. The cage doesn't look as big.
No, it's not. This is the Stan Winston Studios animatronic that they actually built for the original the Redwood scene.
Yep.
And they brought it to the Redwoods, as we showed and talked about earlier. But they never actually got to use it there because Spielberg decided just to go full CGI. So they stuck it in this scene instead.
Yeah, well, a lot of the used and unused animatronics turn up in this camp scene because we got the Stegosaur.
And of course, also the baby Triceratops animatronic that was supposed to be in the first film, but never got used.
Yeah, I wonder if that was something left behind at Stan Winston Studios, or if they just decided to make that for the film. Because we know...
No, there's definitely something left behind, because there's pictures for it in the original making of for the first movie of them building that animatronic and then talking about how they had to scrap it.
Yeah, so I wonder if they just reskinned it for the Lost World. Like the animatronic was still there in storage or something.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I always assumed that it was just the original skin.
Yeah,
so that's a good point.
Well, we know how like the shelf life of the latex skin has. It just depends how they stored it, I suppose. But
yeah,
they're running around between the cages, letting the animals go. It's growing up on the farm. If you hear a group of animals start to bellow out, you know something's up. Especially cows. Like if you get one cow that gets out of where the other cows are, every other cow bellows and wants to get out the gate as well. And there's you got Ludlow talking in the tent sort of about, and we'll cut back to there in a minute. But you got all the hunters nearly out in front of the tent, and we see they're not that far away yet. You got all these animals bellowing, and no one pays attention to it at all.
That reminds me of a funny story. When I was in the Redwoods, the inn that we were staying at was right outside a cow farm. And so one day I just decided, I don't know why, to roll up pull over to the side of the cows, where the cows were, and start yelling out the car window, "Moo!" So the cows come stampeding towards me, and then I'm like, "Oh crap! I gotta get out of here."
They're quite inquisitive.
Yeah.
Often, yeah, you can pull up beside them in a paddock and sort of call out to them, and they'll come running.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we cut back to the command tent here, and we get Ludlow continuing his little speech from the previous minute. You don't bring people halfway around the world to visit a zoo, you bring the zoo to them. San Diego's the perfect setting. People already associate our beautiful city with animal attractions, San Diego Zoo, SeaWorld, and the San Diego Chargers. Now, San Diego Chargers, I imagine, is a football team.
Yeah.
So how would that...
I don't know why you mentioned them.
Yeah, it's being an animal attraction.
I'm wondering if that's supposed to be a joke or something, and it just kind of falls flat.
Yeah, it was something. The writer David Kep or something, a little in joke there. Because it'd be like saying the Miami Dolphins just because they got the dolphin as a mascot. Unless there's some sort of mascot for them that is an actual animal.
I think it's a ram.
Oh, okay. That's even less impressive. Sorry to all the San Diego Chargers fans. But it's...
Actually, no. It's a lightning bolt.
Oh, okay. That's definitely not an animal.
I always thought they meant Chargers and Rams. I don't know. They're not in our division that plays Chicago, so we don't play them.
Yep.
So I'm not familiar with them.
No, it makes sense though. Chargers, I'd think, would be Rams or yeah. Anyway, it's one thing here that's interesting. You don't bring people halfway around the world visit the zoo. Well, wherever you build it, you're gonna have to bring people halfway around the world to visit it, unless you sort of go global and make several different ones. But yeah, even moving it to San Diego, you're still going to have people travelling from all around the world to get to San Diego to see it.
Well, we know that from the first movie, they had a slide in the luncheon scene that said Jurassic Park Europe.
Yeah, yeah.
So we know that they were probably still hinging on an expansion to other parts of the world. In the novel, there was even mention of a Jurassic Park Japan.
Well, yeah, with the Japanese investors in it, you'd think a Jurassic Park Japan would be next on the list.
Yeah.
Just so those investors and family and everything else they had something local.
Yeah, even in the novel, Hammond mentions that the Japanese love their zoos, so of course that's like that's going to be their big area of interest after Jurassic Park Isla Nublar.
Yeah, yep. And it's funny, he's walking around the table, and David, last minute you thought he was on the coffee here. But he's still slurring his words, and it's a bit of an effort to walk around that table. He's sort of stumbling a little bit. I'm just waiting for him to Benny Hill and fall over through the model or something.
Yeah, really. And that is a really good model. There's, I think, a conceptual model that they just put into the scene. Because
Yeah.
there's pictures of it with it was built by the same guy who built the conceptual model for the worker village
Oh wow.
that we'll get to.
Yeah. Well, we get to see a lot more of it the next minute. I've got some
Hmm.
things to bring up about it, but we cut back to Nick and Sarah releasing animals. Noise issue I said before. They got the baby. We see the baby stego, baby triceratops, and the animatronic for the pachycephalosaurus is all here. And we get to the big one, the triceratops,
Uh-huh.
and that's where minute 43 ends. But this whole time you got this nice sort of jungle drum beat going in the background, which I just love.
Yeah.
It sort of builds up the suspense quite nicely.
And something I like about that they have with the Triceratops head here is that when it exhales, it kind of goes back to the raptors in the first movie when they exhale onto the glass and fog up the glass.
Yeah.
Because when this Triceratops exhales, there's this huge cloud of, mist that gets kicked up by the animal.
Yeah, it's breath, yeah. Or condensation, you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just one of those little things that adds to the real, like, the animal's alive. And it's a great little touch.
Well, that also hints to the idea that because, this fog exists because it's kind of chilly at night. When on a tropical island, because the sun's beating down all the time, it gets a little chilly at night.
Yeah.
Because the ocean breeze flows on into the island and cools it off.
Yep.
And that actually happens in the redwoods too, though, is that the morning mists are really heavy because the cool air coming off the ocean is still prevalent on the coastline, but the sun is starting to heat everything up.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you've got a thick forest with a heavy canopy, you're going to have different air temperatures at ground level and above the canopy as well.
Oh, definitely. When I was in the redwoods, it was like midday, around 11:30, 12 o'clock, and we were walking past some trees, and I noticed that I could see my breath, and only in the shadow of the tree.
Yep.
Because these trees are so wide that they create such a shadow that everything underneath that shadow stays cooler than the rest of the area where the sun penetrates it.
Yeah. Well, that's when you start getting a lot of your mosses and that grow on the backside too, like the dark side that never sees the sun.
Yeah.
All right. If there's anything else you want to bring up for 43, Dave?
I think we're good.
Rightio.
All right, guys. Let's get the hell out of here.
Contact details are on the website, thelostworldminute.com. You can email feedback to thelostworldminute@gmail.com, Facebook, The Lost World Minute, Twitter @thelostworldminute, and Instagram, The Lost World Minute.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, very easy to remember. Right. David, thank you for joining me for this record.
You're welcome.
And we'll be back. I've been Brad.
I'm Dave.
And we'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
It is absolutely imperative that we work with the Costa Rican Department of Biological Preserves to establish a set of rules for the preservation and isolation of that island. These creatures require our absence to survive, not our help. And if we could only step aside and trust in nature, life will find a way.